Welcome, everybody. This is Carl back again for another movie review. Today we'll be reviewing Spider Man 2, directed by Sam Raimi. It's a little late right now. I apologize for that. It got caught up with some stuff, and then I had to make sure I, because I'm watching the Nolan movies in this at the same time as I'm watching all these Spider-Man movies. Well, at least the Sam Raimi so far, because there's only 3 Nolan Batman movies. I'll have the Dark Knight up in a little while, but I had to. Well, long story short, it took me a while to get home because I guess a bus driver is just like never came to work, so I had to wait for the next scheduled person to come by, and get me home eventually. So had to just, and then I couldn't, and then I had to get right into watching Spider-Man 2. So I just finished that, rewatching that film again. So my apologies. It should have been posted a couple hours ago, but here and now. And luckily, I don't have to work tomorrow, so I can just pull in all nighter. And I'm kind of fool around with the lighting a bit, so hopefully this looks good to you guys. But enough of that. Spider-Man 2. Man, I gotta say, because it's been some years since, because I've seen it multiple times growing up, but it's been a long while since then, since I last seen it. Probably the last time I seen it was, I'm 33 now, so possibly 10 years ago, maybe the last time I even watched that, if then. Maybe a little over 10 years ago is probably the last time I've seen it. But maybe on cable is probably when I saw it, because I have the DVDs. Because I don't have every Spider-Man on movie on DVD. I definitely got the Sam Raimi ones. I got Spider-Verse, uh, and that is it. I know, shame on me. I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, but I don't have any of the hard copy of any of the films on DVD. I probably should, just to have that in a collection, because I have what little DVDs I have. Uh, you know, yeah, the last DVD I ever gotten was Spider-Verse. Since then, it's like, I got streaming services, so it's like, I wouldn't say DVDs are obsolete, but it's just, but maybe at some point I probably will eventually get like a hard copy of all the Spider-Man films. But anyway, Spider-Man 2. Uh, After I, check out my review of the first Spider-Man Sam Raimi film up on the channel. Now, the links are in the description. Subscribe, share, and everything like that. So I can, because it's like a little over, like nearly 2 hours long. I didn't mean to go that far. I don't think it's 2 hours long. It's definitely over an hour. But check that out if you want to know my thoughts on the first film after so many years of, since I've seen it and went back to it. That still holds up pretty good. But it's just that with this, when you get right into it, this is like a straight up Spider-Man movie. Like, because a lot of people like to complain about, typical superhero origin stories, and I can see their point, because it's like there's a certain amount of paint by numbers, they have to, get through, and there's only like a few. The first Iron Man movie and Batman Begins are like the few examples where directors kind of go outside the box when it comes to origin stories, and is told in a unique way. But I don't, I won't, get on directors' backs, or harp on it so much, because personally I think, like, I get it. It's picked by numbers. It's great if they think outside of the box when they, make a superhero origin film, but sometimes you got to do, because like Doctor Strange movie, it's fairly similar to like the first Iron Man movie, but sometimes and like not like Thor is the same thing, but it's just like Thor as an example is like it doesn't wow anybody as far as an origin story, but it's just that you gotta get the paint by numbers so that way once they get to the second film they can like get to the meat of it, because they got to get their legs in first, and then that way once the second third movie and so on comes into play. That's how I feel about Doctor Strange. Like I love the first Doctor Strange movie. I love Benedict Cumberbatch. He's a perfect Doctor Strange. I love Doctor Strange. I love magic based superheroes. But even though I love it, not a lot of people I mean they don't hate it, but it is don't like the whole paint by numbers origins. But what I tell people is like I get what you're saying, but they have to do, sometimes directors have to do that kind of thing, so that way they can get to the meat and potatoes, what they really want to do, and just go balls to the walls with it in the second and subsequent films in the future. That's how I feel about Spider-Man 2. Once you get into this, it's a straight up Spider-Man movie. We got past the origin of like the whole origin story and becoming a superhero. Now it's like coming of age kind of thing. And as we left off in the last films, some time went by, maybe like at least a couple of years, where Peter Parker is now living on his own apartment in the city. Is not living with Harry no more, obviously. After his Spider-Man personas, because Harry is just like, well, we'll get to Harry, but I'll probably have to just get through the story, then like go into like the characters individually. Peter's pretty much like on his own, and it's like a perfect example of like in straight up in the comic books, where where you got Peter and is trying to balance his life as Spider-Man and trying to hold down a job. I mean, it's like that's why Spider-Man is so relatable and speaks volumes to a lot of people across the planet, even more so than even Batman. Well, people love Batman, but they can't not relate to him like they claim to be. A lot of people claim like, oh, like Batman's more relatable. No, you're not, because like it's only finite of rich people, and even finite-er of those who are well built and who like probably exercises almost on a regular what have you. It's like you can't truly relate to Batman, but you can definitely, hey Daniel, but unlike Batman, because it always I don't want to say it sticks in my craw, but it's just like it kind of like irks me a bit when people say, oh, I can't relate to Superman, he's too OP, I relate more to Batman. No, you can't. I mean, like, I think you can relate to Superman on a fundamental level as far as like values, but it's similar to like Spider-Man. You could probably even more so relate to Spider-Man, not only with oh, you saw it today? Yeah, I mean, I had to watch it before when I got home, because I couldn't watch it yesterday like I planned to. So I'm just coming right off of watching it or rewatching it. Yeah, so it's like you not only can relate to Spider-Man as far as values are concerned, but you can also relate to him with like personal struggles, because it's like the ultimate relatable hero. He's like not only still doing like photography for the Daily Bugle like freelance, but he also picked up an extra job at like this pizza place. And everybody's giving Peter like a hard time, like whether it's at work or school or friends and families. Like they all want to like yo, why are you so always late, Peter? And it's like, and they really give, a lot of people give Peter so much shit. I mean, like, understandably, they don't know what he's really doing. To their point of view, he's lazy, or he's like, late all the time. He's, always making these kinds of excuses. And it's like, to their point of view, he's not a very dependable person, despite him being like a very nice person. And it kind of like, it pains me to watch him just eat shit from a lot of people. When I was a kid watching this, especially in the theater, and then like on DVDs in the future, it made me like upset at these people. Like, y'all had no right to sit there and give this man, who's been nothing but good. Yeah, and it's like, and y'all, give him shit like every time y'all interact with him. I mean, like, maybe not on purpose, but it's just telling, to their point of view, they're telling how they feel. I get it. But it's just like at a certain point, especially Harry, but we'll get to that. But, it's just like, it kind of hurts me to watch him hurt. And when, it was like a fun moment where he's like, he's trying to, get these pieces delivered on time. And it reminds me, because I did play Spider-Man 2 video game back in the day, and it's just like, part of me wish they remastered that, but again, Spider-Man 2, finally, the sequel to the PS4 Spider-Man on PS5 in 2023. I'm excited for that. And Wolverine, I really, I kind of want to do a video of that, but I figure it's, I'm pretty sure a lot of people harped on that for a lot of, at this point in the past couple of days. But I'm just saying, like, I cannot wait for the Wolverine and Spider-Man 2 and everything like that. PlayStation did their thing this year. But anyway, it just reminds me of, like, throughout this movie, I'm just reminded, it's like, man, I really missed that game. That was, like, this movie and its game based off the movie, a lot of people still holds up to this day. Is relative for all, is for young people who with typical adolescent problems, for adults with their monetary problems at work, for children. Yeah, like I said, it like, Spider-Man. I mean, like, Stan Lee and Steve Ditko really, I mean, like, came up with like almost like the perfect character. I mean, it's like, but then again, it's like Superman, kind of like was the first, so he blazed a trail that without him, like, we wouldn't have superheroes, period. But it's just like, we gotta give Superman his just dues. But Spider-Man kind of met that kind of bar, and on some occasions kind of exceeded it as far as relatability and likability. It's just like he covers all areas. But it was like a funny moment where he's swinging, and trying to, because he got like, get their pizza delivered in 30 minutes. Otherwise, it's free kind of situation. I don't even know why. I don't even think pizza places even still do that to this day. I doubt it. I really doubt it. Because, and given the fact that, I mean, I don't live in New York. I live in Chicago. But I heard stories about how, and seen like stuff on like TV when it's like New York is busy, especially like if it's like during the work day, and he's on his little, not moped, but it's like this little rinky-dink kind of little motorcycle that looks like it's like barely running on fumes, and he's trying to maneuver around the streets, but he's not going to make it on time. So he's figured like, okay, it's faster by swinging through the air, which logically that is sound. But then he sees kids, playing near the street, and they almost got hit by a car. So he had to stop in order to save them. And it was a nice sweet moment. And it's like that scene alone speaks volumes so far as like that is freaking Spider-Man to a T. It's like he will go out of his way to help, despite he will go out of his way to despite himself. And it's like the ultimate selfless individual, probably like second to like second or third to Batman and Superman as far as like selfless individuals of all time. But in the end, they kind of like uh, it's kind of like the saying that, or at least the old adage is like, no good deed goes unpunished situation. It's like, despite throughout this film, despite what he's trying to do good for others, kind of like, it's kind of like life takes a dump on him for that, and it's hard for him to, for a person to watch, this man just go through this kind of, like this backlash, so he's fired, but then it's like, now he's pretty much had to fall back on the only other gig he has, which is freelance photography, which he stopped taking pictures of Spider-Man for a period because of J.K. Simmons, aka the greatest, talking about like, great perfect casting, J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson, because of his little slanderous stuff with Spider-Man. He just decided, okay, I'm not going to take any pictures of Spider-Man. If you just keep on just using my photos to just, slander him every day in the paper. But he still have like, stuff stored away just in case, because he needs the money. And he got like, there's this funny little tenant, or not a tenant, but a landlord in his apartment. And part of me wishes that landlord and his daughter, I don't even know I don't know if the guy who plays the landlord is still even alive. I don't even think I ever seen him in stuff at all beyond this movie. It's possible the person who played the daughter is still around, maybe. But it's funny just to see, at least either one of those two is like, rent, and it's like, and it's like every time he bumps into Peters, it's like the only thing he wants to talk about is like, and it's like, I was like, sorry, it's like, sorry, if it was crackers, my daughter would be fat. As it's just like those two is actually pretty dang funny. But he has like a nice, it's just like, there's so much layers to these people. And like, I created the, like, I might give, there's a lot of people who give, I give my fair share of crap to Spider-Man 3, but after so many other crappy, superhero movies, not so many, quote unquote, but there's a whole lot worse superhero films that maybe I'll eventually cover that are worser than Spider-Man 3. And there are some good moments in Spider-Man 3 that I will eventually point out next week when I review that. But he does have a generally nice moment later. So it's, there's layers, to certain characters that is beyond like the surface that I really enjoy. And Sam Raimi definitely deserves his flowers throughout all three of these films. And it's like, looking back, granted, at that time, Spider-Man 3 sucked at that time. Just like we all know that Batman and Robin sucked. But despite that, the campiness kind of made it, nostalgic, and kind of, in a way, makes it work in a weird way. It's kind of like, like when somebody makes a joke that's supposed to be funny, but you only laugh at it because of how ridiculously unfunny it is. It's like, it's so unfunny, it's funny kind of situation. And that's how like Batman and Robin and Spider-Man 3 are in a way. It's like, it's so bad, it actually, the bad moments kind of makes it work. And it's weird. It's like a weird kind of feeling. It's like, and we look back on it now more favorably than we used to at the moment when it released in the theaters. Spider-Man 3 is a good movie, but is the worst of the trailers. Yeah, obviously it's worse of the three. But after like something like Elektra, Catwoman, Thor: The Dark World is probably like the only horrible movie out of the MCU, and that's personally, I still maintain that. I die on that hill. Even as much people crap on Captain Marvel, I think I still like it way better, and it's still solid. It's a solid origin movie. It's not the greatest. It's like middle of the road, but like Thor: The Dark World is, well, out of the MCU, it's the worst movie. It's probably like the one slight out of the entire MCU franchise, but it's still better than like Catwoman and Elektra by a long mile. But yeah. So apparently we like it's apparently the day of his birthday, and somehow like that's another thing. I kind of like always wonder about like movies like this, not even superhero movies. It's just like there's certain movies that I've seen throughout my years where it's like a scene where like a character's been busy, so busy where they forgot like it's their birthday. Like who forgets their birthday? There's no amount of busy that you have that you cannot. I mean, you can acknowledge that it's your birthday, but you just don't care and you just want to go about your day. That's one thing. But and then because you got so much to do, you don't have time to celebrate, but you still acknowledge it's your birthday. That's one thing. But then just the fact that like there's like some weird movie tropes here. It's like a small trope. It's not like repetitive, but here and there things pop up in like rom-coms or this or like Christmas holiday Hallmark movie kind of stuff. There's certain occasions and scenes where like there's a workaholic that's so busy they forgot their own birthday until like somebody close to them comes in with them with like a gift or a cake or something like that. That's bananas to me. Like there's no amount of biz that you are dealing with that you forget your birthday is coming up soon, or at least even if it's like a day you forget, but like a month in, at least a month before is actually coming about. At some point, you was like a day comes by and is like, my birthday's coming up. At some point, especially as the day nears, it's it's gonna be people bringing it up, like if it's like his aunt or his best friend or Mary Jane. At some point a month prior to his birthday, somebody's gonna bring it up. It's like, oh, what you want for your birthday kind of situation. Or like I we can like take this little cruise or something, or we can like spend a day at the movies or dinner or whatever. Somebody would have brought it up, and it's weird to me that he's like, oh, like what's the occasion? He comes in and is like, what's the occasion? It's your birthday. It's like, duh, it's your birthday, dude. Come on. But anyway, that's small nitpick. That's something I just realized as rewatching this, that I think I probably said it when I first watched it when I was younger, but it kind of, when I'm rewatching this, it all comes flooding back. Harry's still like miffed about Spider-Man, and he's ragging on Peter, and he's always bringing it up every time because he knows Peter takes pictures of Spider-Man, and every time he comes on like you still take pictures of Spider-Man, and it's like, first and foremost, like apparently he's been constantly bringing it up, and it's like if someone keep constantly bringing something up to them, eventually you gotta get a clue that you're annoying them about it. Second of all, it's his birthday. You can chill on that for a day at least. It's like, leave that crap at the door. It's your friend's birthday. At this point, he's still friends with them. So you would think he would check that at the door for the day. But there's still like, tension between him and like, at least, probably sexual tension more than likely, between him and Mary Jane. And throughout this film, there's always been moments of like weird, not will they, won't they crap. It's just that, hey, it's like, Mary Jane's like, obviously he's trying to like get him to come like confess his feelings, because she obviously, acknowledge the fact that he has feelings for her, and he wants to say it, but he's like, oh, I can't be Spider-Man. I mean, I can't be with her because me being Spider-Man will put her in danger. So it's like, it's just like that's probably like a lot of people consensus. That is like weird writing in like all three of these movies as a whole. But I think it gets progressively worse as three comes about. But it's just that whole dynamic. I think they really, put Kristen Dunst through the ringer, or at least they not sidelined her, but they like made like Mary Jane is like the most iconic, uh, you know, superhero girlfriend, or like superhero significant other, right next to Lois Lane as far as like icons that everybody knows. If they make a reference to like a couple, they always use like the thing like, oh, look at like Clark and Lois Lane over there, or look at Peter, like look at Spider-Man and Mary Jane over there, kind of situation. It's they're even the people who are not like hardcore comic book fans can make that acknowledgement of the reference. They're like that, and the fact that in 2 and 3, and they treat this character as like just the damsel in distress, even though she tried to have her little badass moment, but it's like, nope, take that away, no. And it's like, with Gwen Stacy and MJ in the MCU, they made those characters. We'll eventually get to it, but they made those characters uh, more so badass characters, like self-reliant and everything like that. And I guess because they learned from this how not to treat like the don't treat they're their own characters. They don't need to be saved. Of course they need to be saved because they don't have any powers, but they can show they can like stand on their own 2 feet. And they really, I really wish they had that kind of reverence for Mary Jane. But then again, maybe the comic books that I was looking into at that time didn't, because Marvel comics of the time and prior in the 90s and like probably late 80s, early 90s. Well, matter of fact, no. It's kind of like bits and pieces in the 90s and bits and pieces in the early 2000s. It was in a rough patch. So as far as reference for Mary Jane, they didn't have much to go on. Maybe so far as like trying to like bring off the page to utilize like we do now when it comes to Gwen Stacy and MJ currently, because enough time has passed, enough comic books have came and went, so they can dig deep and really like highlight the characters in a better light. But it's just a shame that what Kristen Dunst is going through. So through these films, hopefully, because at least like I'm pretty sure it's kind of rumors, but Kristen Dunst and the woman playing Karen Page in the Netflix Daredevil show is supposed to be making like cameos in Spider-Man 3 in December. So maybe they'll get like a better maybe Kristen Dunst will have a better moment and show off her acting chops a little bit better by that movie than she used to in these films in the past. But anyway, because of his constant tardiness, you got like I forgot the actor's name who playing like Kirk Connors, who doesn't get a chance to be the Lizard, which is there's certain moments of characters that pop up in this film, especially a particular character at the end that could have been utilized for Spider-Man 3. Now, I don't blame Sam Raimi. It's more so the studios interfering after they realized, oh, we got a cash cow on our hands. Let's do this, throw that in here, and make it into Spider-Man 3. And it's like they had like something here. Sam Raimi was probably planning on setting up something, but studio interference. What can he do? But he's just there. He doesn't get to be the Lizard. But he's referencing like but the whole laziness and everything like that with Peter. He's like he's starting to fail his classes because he's not showing up on time. He's missing a lot and that kind of thing. But then he got a chance to like pretty much get extra credit just to make up by doing a research paper on Dr. Octavius, who happens to be coincidentally best friends not only with, well, he's best friends with Kirk Connors, at least colleagues, but he's also in a business partnership with Harry. So Harry got, get those two connected. And this, played by Alfred Molina, who will be in the MCU Spider-Man 3 as part of the Sinister Six, which I'm super excited for. He's a great Doc Ock. He's the only Doc Ock that we can even conceive of because he played that role so well. And it's like, it's only right that he gets to, because he does great here, but it's just seeing him again, in the trailer, kind of like they kind of de-aged him quite a bit, but I can look past it. Like I said, I mentioned this before. I don't care how Spider-Man 3 turns out in December. I just want it to exist. I want to live in it. I want to see all three of these, iconic Spider-Man actors come together in this film, and we get a Sinister Six, like we've been 1, 2 since like the Amazing Spider-Man franchise, and we get to see all three of these actors come. It's like seeing like all the James Bond, actors on stage at some kind of award show like many years ago, just to see these three, pivotal actors who play these roles very well, each in their own way, but very well, and supplanting themselves as far as like icons for life. And it's like, it's hard pressed to, like, even though they all did like, different, movies outside of the superhero film, they will forever be known as Spider-Man forever. And like same thing with Tobey Maguire. He did like The Great Gatsby, which I very love very much, and like there's plenty of other films he's done. But he will, just like with Hugh Jackman, he will forever be known as that superhero because he played it so well, and it's like we got reverence for this man. So like he meets up with Octavius, and there's this line that's repeated like at least a couple of times where it's like he just kind of flopped around every time when it's repeated, but basically it's like brilliant. He called him brilliant but lazy to repeat up what Kirk Connors said to him about Peter. Brilliance is not a right; it's a privilege, and use it for the betterment of mankind. Which is kind of like a turnabout way of saying, with great power comes great responsibility. And so he's building this fusion machine. It's pretty much like harnessing the power of the sun for renewable energy, and he builds these mechanical arms to be able to like keep it stabilized and everything like that, while he's like keep it like, because he's using like just like a small portion of it, because only I guess like we said like 25 pounds of it in the entire world. And the Osborn company is the only ones that have it. But it's tritium, that's what it's called. And when he's getting advice from Octavius about like relationships, and it's like a nice little scene, and it's like one of the few that still sticks with me. The fact that how like him and his wife met. It was a real human moment with Octavius that kind of cemented why we like this character so much, because it's like a downfall of a good man, which I will mention in like when I do my Dark Knight review right after this, as far as like the fall of a good man when they lose their way and how far they fall. And this man who loves his wife, and it's like kind of like opposites attract kind of situation, because they met in college. She is like a not English teacher, but she's a literature I don't know if she says she was a teacher, but it's like she's like in the literature stuff, and he was in science. When they met in college, he was trying to explain to her about like the theory of theory of relativity, relatively. Ugh, God, you know what I'm trying to say. The theory of relativity, and she was trying to explain to him about T.S. Eliot. And he's like, he's telling Peter, like, you want to get the girl like you, feed her poetry. Which, that's not going to work for every girl. That's only like a minute amount of women who might appreciate that, who like might be into like poetry, or at least like have like a either interest or hobby into poetry, that might find any type of appreciation for that. And not, and it was like, it's kind of like a weird advice. It's an advice, but not like a paint by all numbers, 1-to-1 kind of thing that you can just utilize for every girl. And you start, trying to charm a girl with like some random poetry, she might look at you crazy. I mean, you might catch her off guard, but the odds for her, like, being swooned by that is very minor. Not saying it won't happen, but it's just like very minor. But so there's a scene right after that where he's like, washing his clothes, and he's washing, his, Spider-Man costume. And to this day, I still get why he did it. So it's like, he put his Spider-Man costume, which is red and blue, and mixed it with his whites. Now, I can, theorize that he just didn't want to run a risk of washing his Spider-Man costume with his colors, because if he pulls it out, somebody might like see it or whatever. But you put it with your whites, and you're shocked when you see them are tainted with blue and red. What you think was going to happen? You're a genius. You're a scientific genius, and you should very well know what would happen. It doesn't even take a genius to know what would happen. I learned this stuff when I was like knee high, about like not mixing your colors with your whites as you're washing clothes. And it's bizarre to me why he decided to do that. And like, he could have just at least washed it by itself and quickly pull it out when it was done so no one will see, or put it in with a big heap of colored clothes along with it, so when you're pulling it out, it's hardly anybody's going to notice, because it's too many clothes to like, discern a piece of fabric. But you put it with your whites. Is freaking bizarre why you do that. But anyway, that's something that was like always bugged me, like a weird choice to do. So he's like, as he's doing this, he's reading like poetry and everything like that. And as I'm watching this scene, you're trying to get this girl back, but it was your decision to keep her away. Now, I want to mention this in my, Andrew Garfield Spider-Man films, but that, even though Mark Webb, has done romantic comedy films before and is very good at it, so that's why it works so well in the Mark Webb films between Gwen and Peter. But this is because it explains better why at first why these two shouldn't be together, and he was handling more adult and very smartly. This one is very dumb, and it's like she was trying to get with you at the end of the last movie, and you push her away because you want to make sure you keep her safe. Now you're trying to work, go out your way trying to win her back, and it's like, pick a lane. And that's the one thing that's kind of like, bothers me about this film, and it probably bothers a lot of people, obviously, that half the time in this movie you're talking about like, you gotta I can't tell you the truth, I want you back, I can't tell you why, I keep pushing you away and that kind of stuff. it's just like there's a smart way to doing this. Now, of course, Sam Raimi, I don't think he ever directed like a romantic comedy or just a romantic movie at all, or done any kind of romantic writing before. I don't even know if he did a writing in this per se, but I'm pretty sure he had to review the script. Obviously, he's a director, but it's just that none of this when you was going over it, none of that stood out to you as like weird dialogue between your characters, while like he's pushing her away, but then at the same time trying to, in the next scene or two, trying to win her, going out of his way to win her back by feeding her poetry. And it's like, did you forget why'd you push her away in the first place? But anyway, she found it aggravating. It was brought up earlier that he never went to her, none of her place. He's like starting to fulfill her dreams of acting, as she stated in the previous film. So she in like these plays. I forgot the name of the play, but she's like on all the billboards, and like every time he goes somewhere, he's always seeing her face. It's kind of feeds into his wanting. I think it probably would have been easier for him to like keep her away if he doesn't constantly see her everywhere he goes downtown, as all these billboards and posters of this play. He's constantly seeing her face, and he's constantly reminded of what he feel like he's losing. So I guess that kind of explains why he's trying to go out his way to win her back, even though he just here and there talking about like I want to keep you safe because Spider-Man will always have enemies kind of situation. But bring it up to her. Bring up to her, tell her, because obviously you want to tell her the truth. There's been times where he's trying to tell her the truth, but he just could not find the words, or the situation didn't present itself yet. But at the demonstration, of this perpetual sustaining energy is about to transpire, and Harry's like I said, I'm going to talk about Harry. He's the whole experiment goes haywire. Of course, there's the thing like inhibitor chip on the back of his neck, connected to the arms, is connected to his body to allow him to control these arms. Short circuits. He loses his wife, and Spider-Man managed to pull the plug on the whole thing before it kind of rips the building apart. And he tried to save Harry in the process, and of course he doesn't hey, this doesn't change nothing, and that kind of is just completely ungrateful. You can, by that moment, when I first saw that scene as a kid, I knew at that moment this like pivotal moment where it's like, yeah, he's completely on like the downward spiral here. The fact that he's too self-involved in his own anger and hatred to see beyond the fact that he just saved his life when he could have easily had died. And it's like he's just too angry to see beyond even that. And then he said, Spider-Man saves the day, and like Sam Raimi is a horror movie director for the most part, and when he gets to film certain scenes, it's kind of like kind of horror-esque, like when the doctor's trying to remove the arms from Octavia's body, which for some reason I don't know why they can't make sure that he's completely sedated to hell, or like properly secured those freaking arms in case he comes out of it and they go wild. But these arms with the mind of their own, starts killing all the doctors, off screen kind of kills. But even then, because sometimes the more horrific kills are the ones you cannot see on screen. And it's like, one moment that still gets me to this day is the fact that there's one nurse that's like, getting dragged across the floor, and she's like, scraping her nails against the ground as she's getting dragged and killed. off screen, and it's like, and she's screaming horrifically. I mean, it's like, holy crap! It's tough for me to watch this scene. To this day, it's tough for me to watch that scene, and it's just like, holy crap! It's like I don't know what was like. If there's a movie you guys have seen where it's like, it's not a horror movie, but there's a scene where it's like can easily be played as horror that kind of gets you like that, please let me know, because I know there's movies out there that's like, you know, can easily be like horror-esque, that's not in a horror movie. But so now Ak escapes, and then now the arms manipulate him because they're operating on a primary function of what it was created to do, was to make sure this energy thing is built, and he's going to make, and the arms are going to make sure that he's followed that protocol, at least work in tandem to make that protocol operate. That is their primary function, and it'll make sure he's operating. So this is kind of like he's being manipulated by these arms, which is kind of like it works so well because it's not unlike certain movies where it's like a character who for some reason just decides to like, oh, something happened to me, let's just be evil now. It's like, and it's usually not written well as to why. And this kind of explains his spirals, like these arms about the inhibitor chip to make sure his higher brain function is in control. These arms are pretty much manipulating him through the whole way. The fact that he's hearing voices in his head, these arms telling him what to do because they're following protocol. And like, since they're connected, they're making sure he's fulfilling that protocol as well. And of course, like MA's, they at the bank, and MA's trying to like, get like, because they're she's losing her house that her and Uncle Ben lived in for years, because I guess he was the primary breadwinner, and she was kind of like pretty much like the housewife the whole time. And then which is like a great scene. So there's a couple of great scenes between like the battle between Ock and Spider-Man in this film. One on the train, which we'll get to, but this bank scene is not mentioned that often when bringing this movie up. But man, oh man, I love this, because people always talking about how like, well, I agree to a certain extent how like Tobey Maguire Spider-Man doesn't joke the same way like we know Spider-Man to joke. But he tells a fair bit of jokes as Spider-Man, where it's like, I still like it. The fact that, he's jumping in and like, Ock is throwing these bags of coins at him, and he's, webs one up and throws it right back. Like, don't forget your change. And then like, just smacks him against it. It's like, I still get a chuckle out of that. Even though Tobey Maguire doesn't tell that many jokes as Spider-Man, when we get one, I cherish it. But as more actors playing Spider-Man come about, you get more of that, and until Tom Holland comes around, where he's like the perfect amount. But Ock eventually kidnaps Aunt May, holding her hostage while he's trying to get away with the money and making sure Spider-Man doesn't interfere. But Spider-Man's of course, Aunt May throughout this early parts of this movie and in the past movie doesn't look favorably on Spider-Man until he saves her, and she kind of, this is funny because unlike MJ in this film, Aunt May still have like a badass moment where she get the whack Doc Ock across the face with a cane. So it's like, wow, it's like even Aunt May gets her moment in here. So he saves her, but as the film progresses, because throughout the film, it's like Peter's getting like pounded on by people in his life, with MJ, give him hard times as far as like, you never once came to my play. You don't, primarily the only person left that hasn't even stopped by to come to my play. Even though he's tried at least one time to get there earlier in the film, but he had to stop to be Spider-Man while these bank robbers are like going on a high-speed car chase with these cops and saving these group of people from being crushed by cars. And like I mentioned in the previous film, the extras in the Sam Raimi films are bizarre with their line deliveries. I mentioned it before about this, tall black lady is like, "Go, Spidey, go!" It's like, God, somebody should we take another take of that? Because it's a weird, it's like a very hype. And then some white lady during the bank scene with glasses, and it's like, as Dr. Ock is climbing up on top of the buildings, sticking the arms through the walls to gain leverage, and she's running to the camera screaming all in the face. Ah! It's like, Jesus Christ. Why shots like that? Why, Sam Raimi? But anyway, of course, I keep forgetting his doggone name, but it's Ash from The Evil Dead, who plays like the wrestler announcer in the previous film, and then he's kind of reprising his role. Now he's like the doorman to this play, and he's not letting Peter in after because he couldn't make it on time as the doors were open to let the audience in, and because there is like some kind of etiquette. I've never been to a play myself, but I know there's like some kind of like some protocol where it's like, as soon as the doors are closed, they cannot be reopened. So you got to get in a certain point, otherwise you can't come in. And I'm not sure if that's still the case, but I guess it makes sense. You don't want like wanderers from outside coming in as plays, because you hear like I don't know how creaky the door is or loud it is as somebody's coming in, pushing a handle and like doors closing behind them, kind of disrupting the play as it's going on, because it's got to be like total focus, I guess. But he wouldn't let them in after like some weird interactions, like, "Oh, your shoes untied. Oh, thanks. Oh, yeah, fix this up. Like, oh, thanks. Oh, you can't come in." What was the point of all that? So he had to sit outside until the play was over, hoping to run into Mary Jane. And I guess obviously apologize again, because like just to show that he actually tried to make it. He's literally right here, but it's like you couldn't, like, obviously could easily explain it away. But of course he's seen another guy, J. Jonah Jameson' son, the astronaut. My son, the astronaut, which is John Jameson, who in the comics is I don't know if they call him the Wolfman, but he's pretty much like a anti-hero Wolfman in the comics. It's a long story, but he's like kind of like I don't even know, you can call him like a B-lister kind of hero, but he's definitely like a C-lister. Yeah, I remember reading like a Carnage short issue run where he's like leading a team to like stop this or otherworldly kind of mystical cult thing, trying to resurrect some ancient being using Carnage as like as a catalyst or something like that. But that he was kind of like a Rick Flag of the Suicide Squad in this kind of situation, and that was the only time I can remember in recent comics where he had like a moment to shine. But nobody's barely using him like that since then. And but in this movie, he's barely like a thing here. He's just kind of like arm candy. He has a few lines, barely really any interaction with his own father in this film, which is just like he's done really dirty. He's not like a bad boyfriend, even though she's getting married to him very quickly, because I'm pretty sure like I don't even know if it's even been a year yet and they sitting there uh already engaged and everything like that, and it's like there's a deleted scene where there's like mentioned probably like exactly how long, because by MJ herself meeting with her girlfriends as they're like practicing, for the play, and she brings up the astronaut, and she I'm pretty sure mentions how long they been together, but she's still pining for Peter. But here and there, she's still like also pining for Spider-Man, because she assumes that she is a good chance, like, hey, he's like a pretty much a hero in his own right. Let me try to kiss him upside down and see if he's Spider-Man, because that's how I'll know. But as you kiss him, doesn't feel the same. Not the same guy. But he's get done dirty in his, because she doesn't end up with him, leaves him at the altar eventually. But it's like, and that's all we see of him. He's like they could have cut this man out entirely, and it would have changed nothing in his film. And I think a lot of people would agree. It's just like a waste of a character, honestly. They could have used, because no, matter of fact, John Jameson had like a pivotal moment in the '90s Spider-Man cartoon where he was unwillingly responsible of bringing the alien symbiote to Earth while he's on like a space exploration. And they could have utilized that same method for Spider-Man 3, but they did not do it. If they was going to use the character, they could have used him for that moment. But like I said, they wasted that character and that actor. I don't even know if he's been in anything else besides this. But it's like after like witnessing like he coming up to MJ after the play, making out with her, and then like walking away. So he's like heartbroken. Don't know why. Like we expect her to do just wait for you until you eventually change your mind, even though you kind of rebuffed her every time you change your mind every 5 seconds, man. What do you think was gonna happen? Anyway, because it was at this moment when like he's swinging through the air trying to clear his head, because Spider-Man does that a lot. When he's like having issues, he clears his head by just swinging through the air. And I gotta admit, when I'm playing the Spider-Man games, I kind of get that kind of same rush where it's like, I'm swinging through the air, not worry about anything. It's just like a peaceful kind of moment, just the quiet, just alone with your thoughts. But at a certain moment, his webbing stops working, and he's falling like straight to on a roof, and it's like his vision's getting blurry again because he's known to wear glasses when he was younger, and it's like the Spider-Man powers kind of give him like good senses. But now it's kind of like he's getting dizzy looking over the edge of a building. He's not like his equilibrium is kind of shot now. He doesn't have that kind of balance anymore. At least it kind of this powers kind of took a pause for a minute. Now, through the course of the film, it's kind of like because of his, self-confidence, it's kind of being shot to hell for all these little interactions he's been going through. It doesn't really make much sense. They could have came up with something better so far as like the reason why the whole him losing his powers thing is not like a bad idea, but it could have worked out a different scenario to give him like a better reason why his powers are failing him. And instead of just him being sad or just lack of self-confidence. It could. Given it now during the current state of things, as far as like people's mental health and like depression and everything like that that could have probably worked now than it did back then, because it wasn't, the present has always been a thing, but it wasn't like the an important thing to focus on in the populace, because there's always been like nobody's outward about it back then like they is now, as far as like my mental health is important. Let me make sure I get my mind right, and kind of thing. And like I said, it could work now as far as like uh, my powers are failing me because like I'm depressed, like I can't think straight. Like I'm like my anxiety is kicking in. I think that works more with Tom Holland because he's a teenager of today, and the teenagers of today are dealing with anxiety and depression and all that other stuff. So his power is connected to that, possibly could work, but at that time probably wouldn't make more sense. They could have done like a more sciencey way of explaining like his powers failing, and it's kind of like something could have worked something out. There's a funny elevator scene I just want to bring out because in the deleted scene, because he had to take an elevator from the roof down so he can walk the rest of the way out of costume, but of course he had to go back to pick up his civilian clothes to walk the rest of the way home while he's dragging his bike. At this point, the thing is like shot to hell, man. You gotta let it go. But he's taking this elevator ride from the roof down, and he's bumping into this dude. I think he's like a famous actor. I can't not recall. I'm pretty sure many people brought him up here and there from things that I really have not seen. But he's like in a deleted scene. Well, in the theatrical version, he's talking like those look a little uncomfortable. It gets kind of itchy. It kind of rises up in a little bit of it. Kind of rises up in the crotch a little bit too. It's just like a funny, but like an awkward but funny moment. Just to see, like just Spider-Man just like taking like a very awkward elevator ride down to the first floor. But in a deleted scene, this dude's I guess kind of like an ad executive, and he's trying to pitch Spider-Man like, at least he doesn't know he's actually Spider-Man, just a guy in a costume, and it's like trying to pitch him like an idea about like cologne and call it Thwip, and it's just like that whole scene is kind of, I wish they would have kept that because I think it's pretty dang funny. Just just dude trying to pitch like a product to Spider-Man, but eventually like during this whole course, like Doc Ock is building this machine, but and then you go to the engagement part, and this engagement, well, yeah, there was this like a engagement party, this big lavish thing, being thrown by J. Jonah Jameson, and like, of course, like he's trying to like confess his love in an inopportune time to MJ here, like you gotta like in my head I'm saying like, dude, you do know how inappropriate this is in this exact moment right now. You could have just like, left it at the door or bring it up somewhere privately, and not at the very least do it privately somewhere after the this whole event, like doing it another day, because right at this time is very inappropriate. But then she kind of rebuffs him because she's kind of like at this point fed up with like being constantly pushed away and all that stuff. And then Harry getting drunk off his ass, and then to this day it bugs me so much the fact that he slapped him like a few times, and like is also in front of people, and it's like nobody's, no security, anybody's not gonna jump in. And I know like Peter's being understanding because Harry's drunk, he's going through stuff that he doesn't think Harry knows that he knows, but I have a lot of best friends. I don't want to say a lot, but I got like a good few best friends that like true friends. Any one of them like put my hands on me, I may not punch them in the face for putting their hands on me like that, but I will shove them. Like, dude, what the fuck are you slapping at? And like, get your shit together. And now, of course, he got spider strength. You don't want to cave his fucking chest in on accident. But it's kind of like just should have like reworked that scene where it's like you still get that moment when onlooker's looking at this little minor scuffle, but as soon as like Harry may not cut out the slapping, but include Peter shoving him back. Just out of reaction, human reaction of like self-preservation, that kind of thing. Your initial reaction, anybody's initial reaction, would be to, at the very least, push that person away from you just to stop him from hitting you. And he's just standing there and taking it. And like onlookers just looking. Of course, like onlookers are onlooking because even if you see it in real life, nobody wants to step in when they see something like that. They don't know what the situation is, but somebody would have at least rolls a security kind of situation. That always bugged me out. Like to this day, I never liked that scene. It never sat well with me. It's a nitpick, but that's my personal thing. I'm not sure how you guys feel about that, but I always found that very disturbing of a decision of that scene where you get that moment when somebody just repeatedly slapping Peter and like nobody's stepping in. I don't know how MJ didn't see that when she was literally just right there, or in like his boss is literally right there. Like he comes in like at least a few seconds after that moment just to pull him aside to take more pictures. Like nobody around him that's of significant importance sees this and steps in between them, or at least have Peter push them away and tell him like, oh, get your stuff together. Like don't you ever touch me like that? What's wrong with you? Of course, throughout this whole ordeal, he's like I said, getting dumped on a lot in this film. And like, because of that, when he's swinging through the air afterward just to clear his head, he's just like, his part of his goal's just gone now. He's falling, and it's like he's seen like, near a dumpster, and like more slanderous stuff by the Daily Bugle about like Spider-Man using his own photos. And it's like, he just feels like the whole world is against him, despite anything he's trying to do for good. It at this point in the film, it feels like it's amounting to nothing. And it's like, and I understand him completely. Like I've been there. I think we all been there. It's like, despite what we try to do, that we know is the right thing to do, and of course, not everybody's gonna see it or acknowledge that fact. But it's just like, it feels like the universe doesn't throw us a bone, even though you're supposed to do good, and you're just out of the goodness of your heart, of course. But every now and again, you feel like the universe the good karma will come back to you in some manner. And that's the thing like Peter's been dealing with this whole film. Is like, me being Spider-Man is detriment to my personal life, and like all the good that I do doesn't seem to amount to shit. And it's like, why do I even do this if I not only I can't get what I want personally, but also nobody's seem like they're appreciating me as Spider-Man either. So why do I even bother to do either if I can just focus on one, which in my mind should matter in my personal life, because that's something I should be concerned with. Then you gotta go weird, because you try to go to the doctor, and it's like this doctor with a tie-dye shirt and everything. Go, oh, he's a cool doctor. Like, it's like they always like disturb me. Like, of course, he's the doctor, and it's like, I don't know, it's probably like almost like personal clinic, but it's like, it's not like one of those like a big deal hospitals or anything like that. It obviously goes to like a small little thing because it's how much you can afford for at least like a checkup or something like that. But you dress in like a tie-dye shirt and everything like that. I mean, you dress what you want. It's a small thing, and you probably like run this so you can wear what you want, I guess. But it's just like, it's like weird. You trying to, it's like the equivalent of like like those little movies, or at least like those I won't say dare videos, but it's kind of like back in the day when it's like you're in class and they teachers showing you this video about like people showing like the stranger danger or dangers of like fires in the house or forest fires or whatever like that, and like some dude coming at you trying to speak to the kids, and then let me rap with you, and then he sits down and turns he sits on the chair, but he turns it around so like the back seat is on his chest, and it's, let me speak to you, let me rap with you. It's the equivalent to that, and that's what bothers me. And it's like, why are you trying to make this character stand out when he only has one scene? And it's a nitpick, but it's like a dumb thing. It's like, maybe looking back on it now, it kind of more so, finding it kind of, weird. It's not like a huge deal. I didn't care, or at least think about it like that back in the day. But looking at it now, it's kind of like, man, you are so lame. But he's trying to inadvertently tell this doctor, like, I'm Spider-Man in my dreams, but I'm losing my powers and I don't know what's going on. And the doctor's pretty much like, maybe this is on your head, and if you, why are you trying to crawl these walls? And it's like, maybe he's maybe not meant to climb these walls. And then later on, you get this little weird of Ghost of Christmas Past BS going on. I don't want to say BS, but it's just like, he's in his own thoughts, speaking with like the memory of Uncle Ben. The last good moment he had when was in the car ride when he was dropping him off at the library. When he's trying to explain to Uncle Ben, it's like, I can't be Spider-Man, and it's like, it's ruining my life, so I'm Spider-Man no more. I can't, keep doing this if I'm not. Obviously, he's trying to express that he's not being appreciated. Even though it's like, you don't get in the superhero gear just for the praise and glory. You do it because it's the right thing to do. Obviously, that's the whole thing he's trying to learn, or at least he knows it. But it's just like the personal stuff is weighing down on him too hard, and it's like life is getting, at this moment, both his superhero life and his personal life is getting harder, and living too. That's what something that's probably gonna be explained in like the Tom Holland Spider-Man movie 3, is the fact that living two lives is is going to cause some issues, and it's like it's going to make it harder than it is if you. It's already hard with one life. You live in two lives, it's going to be twice as hard, and that's what you're seeing here right now. Is just like, he's giving up Spider-Man because it's like twice as hard, and he's like, he can't focus on both. He can't split his mind into doing two things at once, and one has to be given up. And he's obviously not going to give his personal life because he has to live outside of just being a Spider-Man. So he dumps the costume in the trash, kind of like doing the whole, because there's like a Spider-Man issue where he's like, Spider-Man no more. It's called Spider-Man no more, and he utters the line, I'm Spider-Man no more, which in the theaters, when you heard that stuff, if you're a Spider-Man fan, you know what that is, and you gasp, and you get chills, because like you revitalizing, or like you're doing a recall to that iconic issue, and the cover where you see Peter Parker walking off in the distance, and the Spider-Man costume is in the dumpster, hanging over the edge. And that Spider-Man, has a lot of iconic covers, or at least scenes in comics, like the death of Gwen Stacy, that kind of thing. That always sticks out to a lot of comic book readers, not even just Spider-Man fans, but comic book readers as a whole. Know certain iconic shots that stick with you for years, and that particular moment of Spider-Man no more sticks out like a sore thumb. And it's like one of the very best Spider-Man issues to this day. This is probably right up there with the death of Gwen Stacy. Is probably like the most iconic Spider-Man issue that's very well written, very well drawn. It's like, it just hits all the beats. Eventually J. Jonah Jameson get these costumes, and like, he's gleefully thinking like, I finally ran him off. He gave up. And Robbie, you get like this little look of like disappointment and sorrow as he's looking up, holding the mask and he's looking off in the distance, like, because there's certain shots in this film and the previous film where he's like, because in the comics, Robbie's no dummy, and like, and just like with certain characters, like Robbie or in the DC comics, like Jim Gordon, and even like Perry White in the Daily Bugle. These like are very smart individuals that worked with these characters long enough, whereas like they're investigative reporters or policemen, well well decorated investigative individuals, and like it will behoove you to not, or at least you'll be naive to think that they're that oblivious to the fact that, well, at least at a certain period over time, probably like around like late 90s, early 2000s, when the comics is kind of like, make a little point here and there where you can get inkling that they know, but they know also these are good people, that they respect them and care for them so much, where it's like, I'm gonna play along with this facade just for you. I'm gonna pretend like I don't know, even though I know, kind of situation. Like you hear Robbie every once in a while, like, I heard Spider-Man was there, and he gives him this kind of look, and it's like, it's just that, it's like it's moments like that, or even like not in like the Nolan films, but it's like certain comics where like Jim Gordon is like every once in a while gets that lines like that. It's like like I know it's like I always knew, but I didn't. I mean, I can't. They never give like 100% like they knew, but it's kind of like 80% they knew, but they kind of like play along here and there. It all depends on the writer, but it's like it's obviously they're not dumb, but they just play along to the thing because these are good individuals doing good, and they obviously want to keep the secret for a reason. So I will respect that. But I like characters like that. That's like they'll just play along to the whole facade, but they know. I just some characters I like that about them. Then you see Peter just going about like his daily life, where it's like he's going back to classes on time. He's like bring up his schoolwork. He's going to MJ's plays, which shocking her. But even though it's still not good enough to win her back, even though he's get disappointed, and he's like, but he's feeling good at the moment when he's like just like, like things are going great. I'm putting Spider-Man behind me. I want to live my life. I don't have any power, so I can't even do nothing. But then you start to see like slowly but surely things starting to weigh on him. It's like because I guess he's gotten so used to it now, it's bothering him that he's missing a part of himself that it's like not being fulfilled, and not when so like doing this for his own fulfillment. Is just like doing good for others is like pretty much like intoxicating. Not I'm saying intoxicating, but it's just kind of like he's like he feeling like like there's something he can be doing about it. But it's kind of like gnawing at him, the fact that he's, kind of rebuffing back. It's kind of like reverting back to that moment where he's not stopping that burglar from, running away with all that stolen cash. And it's like, and that ends up, doing harm later on that's unforeseen, like end up killing his Uncle Ben. So it's like that it's like gnawing in the back of his mind at this point. But you get a moment here where it's like after they go to visit Uncle Ben's grave for a particular day, and they back home, or at least to Aunt May's place, she's you know you know beating herself up, thinking like it's her fault for not keeping Ben home instead of just allowing him, Peter, just to go to the library where she thought she was, he was going to the library, and just like if that would have happened, Uncle Ben would have, still be alive. But then Peter's just like finally comes clean on the subject, and watching this in the theater as like is one of the few times when like the audience gasps when like he's finally confesses like, I didn't go to the theater, to the library, like I said. I went somewhere else, and because of that lie, Uncle Ben was at a spot where he wasn't supposed to be because of me, and he ended up getting shot by a mugger. And of course, she takes her hand away after he's trying to hold her hand, and she just walks off in silence. And that made the audience gasp. And it's like, I kind of like that in a weird way. I kind of like that. It's like he doesn't easily get forgiven. A lot of like certain shows or movies where it's like, just to kind of like speed up the process, they like trying to show that, oh, I understand, but then kind of eats at them, and then they kind of like passive aggressively kind of like take jabs at them because it still obviously bothers them. But this is like one of those good moments where it's like she doesn't shout or takes shots at him or whatever. She just is in total shock by this revelation. She just had to get up and just leave and just be by herself to like process that. So he's not quickly forgiven until later on, where it's like she's like, it's water in the bridge, and it's okay. But it's like before they get to that point, like he's like seeing like this kid getting mugged in the alley, and he just not stepping in because he feels like, well, I don't have my powers. There's nothing that I can do. I can just easily get jumped because I'm just a frail little kid at this point. Well, kid, whatever. But and then there's a burning building, and he just jumps in, no powers at all, saves his little kid from being burnt alive in this building. But one of the firefighters mentions like, well, there was still one person left, unfortunately, that didn't make it. So that really got to him. So he's sitting there in his apartment saying to himself like, what do you want? It's like, I can't have anything now. It's like as Spider-Man, it's like I'm being treated ungratefully, and as Peter, I still don't get what I want. It's like, what is there? Like, what do you want me to do? Like, he's just pretty much just talking to himself, but he's probably just telling the universe, like, what do you want? And it's like, throw me a bone. And it feels like, all that is being said, the landlord's daughter comes in, and it's a cool scene where it's like, I didn't get it fully, back then, but looking back now, it's like the universe kind of answered his call when she's come knocking on his door. She's very, sweetest person in this entire film. She's a small little role, but she made that role, and she kind of like is the fact that she's one of those small bits that kind of stood out. It's one of those rare moments when like a small character has like a good scene with the main character that kind of sticks out. And it happens, but it's just like sometimes it's done poorly. But in this character, obviously she got kind of a crush on Peter, the way she's acting all nervous around him and everything like that. It's kind of like the reverse to how Peter was back in high school when it comes to MJ, when he's like all kind of like nervous and anxious. But to be honest, it's like in another world, you can definitely see these two kind of like easily be together. The way she's like you know, sees him. But she comes over, sees like, I guess and took notice of how like down he looks. So she come over. Do you want me to? Like I made some cake, and he he gets a slice of cake, and at that moment it's like, and then of course he pass him like a message left by his aunt. I don't know why she's taking his messages if. Because he doesn't have his own bathroom. It's like a bathroom right out in the hall that, people all, I don't know if they all share, but it's like maybe like one per floor or something like that. I'm not sure how the building layout is, but on his floor, the landlord who lived across from him, it's pretty much like they share like the bathroom there. And it's like, this is very weird. I don't know how many apartments are like that. It's very disgusting. But she apparently taking messages for him like he's a freaking secretary. I don't know why he doesn't have his own phone line in his own house at the very least. Whatever, he can't pay his own phone bill, but still though, why you have your aunt calling somebody else just to get to you? But I don't know. I never noticed any phone in his own apartment, so like I thought that was a weird thing. Even for back then, it's the middle 2000s, and you don't have your own phone line. You got to rely on somebody else's phone line to get calls from people that to them to relate to you. But anyway, and this is still around the time we still had payphones, mind you, so it's a different time. But that moment with the cake is like you get this little small moment where it's like the universe is throwing you a bone here. It's like, like it's kind of like saying like, this sweet girl bringing you a slice of cake, and it's like a small reward for your efforts. Now, and it's kind of like, it's just the way you gotta interpret it, or at least how Peter should interpret it. It's like, especially on the outside looking in, it's like the universe hasn't forgotten you. Like, this is not, it might not be nothing at this moment, but it's kind of like, here you go. For all it's worth, here's just a little slice of heaven in a way. Despite the crap you've been dealt with so far up to this point, here's some small reward. And it's kind of like builds on it. It's kind of like, the universe is finally giving his good karma back to him. It's like all the good he's done is because karma's not an instant. Good karma's not an instant thing. You put good out in the world or bad out in the world, eventually it will come back to you. It may not be today or tomorrow or next week, but eventually it does. And just kind of like it took a while for that good karma to come back to him, and it's coming back tenfold from this moment forward in the film, where like he's going to Aunt May. She's in a way forgiving him and proud that he's stood up and came clean. And then apparently some neighborhood kids helping like Aunt May move out because she can't pay the bills to the house anymore. So she got a little small apartment that she could afford. And then a lot of people like to joke about these long-winded speeches by Rosemary Harris playing Aunt May, which I'm surprised she's still alive, to be honest with you. Not, like in a negative way, but it's kind of like, after all this time, I thought she probably long since died because she was already old in the Sam Raimi franchise. The fact that it's already 2001 and she's still around, apparently. I only found out like early this week or late last week that she's like, still alive. It's like, wow. Like, she shouldn't, like, I don't know. She kind of felt like she should have been like dang near in her late 60s, early 70s back during this time of filming. And like, she's still around now. It's like, wow. Maybe I'm off by her age, but it's just like, wow, you're still living? I mean, good for you, but it's like, wow, did not see that coming. But she going on these speeches like, like everybody needs a hero, like, especially kids like Danny, who's been asked like, where Spider-Man is, he's coming back, and it's like uh as like anime is telling, like, you know, you know, people like Spider-Man, who's like selfless, who, like, does the right thing, and you tell people, like, he's like a symbol for people to like hang on a little bit longer. And it's like this big speech, little long-winded, but definitely gets the point across eventually. The fact that Spider-Man is a symbol that people look up to do the right thing and stand up, for what's right in the world. And to lose that, it's like losing, like, a bit of the city's soul in a way. So I mean, this kind of gives Peter like kind of like the like a sign. It's like you was on the right path, and it's like you, like, kids like Danny, and like that speech from Aunt May kind of shows that. In another scene later on the train situation, it's like it's giving him like the sign is like, your efforts were not in vain, and like people like this kid thinks the world of you, so don't give up. And of course he's trying to, like, he run off the rooftops, and he's trying to like trying to force his powers to return, but it's not working. He's still like missing something. And that's when he's like meeting up with MJ, and like, of course, like, Doc Ock is like still like only one piece left is the Trillium, or at least the last bit of Trillium that only Harry Osborn has. And Harry's like, give me Spider-Man and I'll give you the Trillium. And Peter Parker's the only one who knows where he is, because he takes pictures of Spider-Man, pretty much like putting his best friend in danger. But like I said, you can tell the downward spiral he's under. He it's a weird thing is he just threw a car through a glass window of the cafe that him and MJ are talking in, and it's like that could have easily killed them, and you kind of lost your shot of like trying to fight Spider-Man. But he kidnaps MJ just to get Peter to find Spider-Man to bring him to him. And is this moment where it's like that confidence and everything is returning, because it's like, everything in his personal life is in place now. Like he's like everything's perfectly aligning now, whereas like everything's kind of earlier in the movie was askew. And it's like the MJ, Aunt May, he's kind of like, he came to some kind of closure that he, wasn't like coming to grips with, that he's finally coming to grips with. It's kind of like rejuvenize the powers. So he goes off, gets his costume back from J. Jonah Jameson, which I don't know how he knew that J. Jonah Jameson had it, but he got it back. And he's like fighting Doc Ock on his train. And it was like a perfect scene. It's one of the iconic superhero fighting scenes, outside the MCU. And, or even like it rivals even certain scenes from MCU here and there. But, Doc Ock, get this train to like go out of control. You get the iconic like, train stopping scene with Peter Parker. He passes out, and this is another moment where it's like, not only he gets him closer, and get that good karma from MJ and May, but just the people, because of course his mask get like kind of like fire spurts on his face, so he kind of like had to take the mask off. So now people on the train know his face, but he doesn't really care, because the only thing he's concerned with is make sure he saves these people from getting killed by this out of control train. So he passes out a little bit from like overexerting himself. I mean, it's like a funny moment where he tried to stop the train by putting his foot down on like the tracks, but it doesn't work. And one of I think the conductor was the one that's like, got any other bright ideas? And there's always cracked a lot of people up in the theater. I still remember that to this day. It's like, I think my father was, no, I think it was my stepmother who said something. It's like, I forgot what she said, but I know she made some kind of comment. I'm thinking to myself, all right, that's enough from the peanut gallery. So let me just do my job, please. Thank you. But uh, but as they, carry him inside, and Noah's like, oh, and one guy sounds like he's no older than my kid. Yeah, kid, sure, whatever. Uh, but Peter wakes up, knows his mask is still off. Like, you didn't know your mask was off the whole time when you're trying to stop this train. You can't blame him on the adrenaline. You know, like okay, they obviously see you, but you just didn't care. Uh, so like they found his mask, they handed it to him, and they promised like, we promise we won't tell nobody. And it's like, I'm glad, I'm pretty sure we still had camera phones from like flip phones and everything like that. So, those kind of cameras doesn't have like great resolution. But if that kind of stuff happened now, please believe there'll be somebody, especially those kids, if there were kids of today, would be snapping pictures left and right, or at least trying to sneak a picture and stuff to have, at least on their personal thing to have. But there's no way you can guarantee that, if they would have pulled that kind of stuff today, that little, oh, we promise we won't tell nobody, I doubt that will fly. But it was just a nice scene though. And that is another moment where it's like, the people showed that they are, at least group of people is like a perfect example. It's like they showed that, they appreciate everything, especially after this moment. It's like, you put yourself at life's risk for our sake, and you've been doing that for the longest time, and it's like keeping your secret isn't our way of thanking you. And like Peter like needed all this. Like I said, that good karma is kind of like just coming back tenfold. It's like he's being appreciated in his personal life and as Spider-Man, and it's like it wasn't all in vain. And that's what I liked about this film. It's like in this film represents how we feel about Spider-Man in real life. It's like we appreciate Spider-Man for everything he's done for like pop culture and what he's shown us in like personal lives growing up as kids and into our adulthood. He like kind of like a linchpin in a lot of people growing up, as far as like, especially in me, like as far as like how I view the world and like my morality as a whole. Like he's like the foundation of how I see or live my life. And it's like, Spider-Man means something to people, a lot of people, and showing that on the silver screen kind of like really brought that to life, or at least showing like how Spider-Man is so beloved and cherished, and it's like not even an American icon, he's just an icon. It's right up there with Batman and Superman as far as like the ultimate icon. And of course then he puts his mask back on just in time where like Doc Ock comes in, takes him to Harry, and Harry pulls off his mask, and it's like it's like he's in shock that he's like his best friend Spider-Man this whole time. And he's telling Harry like, look, we can sell this later, but he has MJ, you need to tell me where he is so that I can go save her. So the one slice of or shred of decency that Harry had left tells him where Doc Ock is holed up, so you go save MJ. And of course you get this cool moment where like you get this final fight between Doc Ock and Peter, as he's trying to like try to pull a plug on this whole thing like before, but it's too big now. It's self-sustaining at this point, and he managed to reach the human underneath the soul of Doc Ock, and Doc Ock tells him, well, we got to drown this thing. There's the only way to stop it at this point. And of course, you get the iconic death scene of Doc Ock as he's, you know, his last words, "I'm not going to die a monster," and he, you know, drowns at in the risk of his own life. He drowns the entire, uh, uh, you know, energy thing into the river, and like he's gone and dead. At least for now, he's dead. Uh, and then of course his Peter's mask is off. He like, you know, MJ finally get to see, and so he tells her like, you know, like Spider-Man will always have enemies. That's why we can't really be together. And of course, MJ leaves, you know, John at the altar, and then runs down the street in her wedding dress. And like a moment here I wanted to bring up earlier, but I just want to wait till it's now to bring it up. You get to see Thomas Jane the Punisher, and when I was watching this in a theater, it's like it's only a split second because no one would have noticed. I mean, because at least I did not notice because I was focused on her running down the street. But it's like a passing glance in like the corner of my eyes. Like I could have sworn I recognized somebody passing by, but it went through, you know, and it's like, and other people had to like tell me later. I was like, yo, yeah, that was the Punisher. And it's like I did not believe it until like eventually I saw it on DVD and I had to pause it. Like, holy shit! And it's like original MCU. Like I said, clearly like Sam Raimi had like a plan because like the first time we ever meet the Punisher in the comics, he was a bad guy gunning after Spider-Man after, you know, he was being misled thinking Spider-Man wasn't like a bad guy. And obviously maybe Sam Raimi had like a notion of bringing because Thomas Jane's Punisher, you know, came out a little bit before Spider-Man 2, I think. And so he was like the favorite Punisher for the longest time until John Bernthal Punisher came into play in the Netflix series. And of course, there was you know, Dolph Lundgren back in like the 80s or early 90s, I think. Yeah, late 80s, early 90s. He was like a Punisher for like a little, you know, not indie movie, but it's kind of like a smallest movie that you know, they didn't really stand out like that. For all I knew, this was the first Punisher. But then you got Punisher Warzone, which is fine. But to this day, I think like I love the Thomas Jane Punisher movie, and I like the Netflix Punisher series. And those two actors probably like my favorite Punishers, and it done so well. Eventually, I will do like the Punisher films, you know, at some point down the line. But Thomas Jane Punisher is like so amazing. I love that freaking movie to death. I mean, that was an incredible movie, and the deleted scenes kind of really elevated the film, you know, completely. Highly recommend you check out the film, but you know, make sure you also included the deleted scenes as well. But anyway, yeah, MJ and Peter meet up in Peter's apartment, and you know, they reconcile. They, you know, decide to start this relationship. And you know, she said like, I know it's gonna be danger, but I want to face that together with you. And then of course he goes off to start, you know, saving some people after he hears some sirens, and she's like, go get him, Tiger. But then you get this little shot with her face, and it's like kind of slightly dour look, like knowing that there's gonna be, you know, there's gonna be some, like she can sense there's gonna be some issues, but we don't know how big they're gonna be until the third film. But I swear, I think like the Punisher was supposed to be like part of the you know, third film, but until like studio interference kind of mucked all that up. That would have been an incredible Spider-Man 3 if they would have like just did the whole Punisher meets Tobey Maguire Spider-Man and try to do like the whole face off. That would have been cool as hell. But anyway, that was like pretty much the overall story. But I want to go over each individual characters and their little arcs, starting with Harry, because I've been like I've been on this, sitting on this for a minute. Definitely the movie that marked my childhood and what brings me beautiful memories. Yeah, yeah. This movie still holds up. Great deal, like a great deal. And as a matter of fact, it's a lot of people's still favorite film. Like after all this time, I mean, of course, the MCU films came into play, and then there's a lot of X-Men movies that came into play between then and now. But I think a lot of people still hold this film in esteem, high regards, and I could not agree more. I mean, it's like it's not perfect film, but it's still done so well and did even better than even like the first movie, because this one actually solidifies like you're in Spider-Man movie now. No apologies. We're in a Spider-Man movie. Like Spider-Man, he's doing Spider-Man things, and he's dealing with Spider-Man problems now. Yeah, Harry, yeah, he's he's still reeling from the events from the first film. He's spiraling, and now you already can tell in the first film that he was vying for the approval of his father that he still never got. Now that he thinks Spider-Man killed him, he not only he lost a father and he's already like hurt by that fact, but add on to the fact that he never got that sought after approval from his father that he's not now is never gonna get, and that becomes like his always been in his obsession, but it's twice fold now, where it's pretty much driving him to anger, depressing, to drinking, and eventually he finds Norman's secret hideaway with all his goblin gear, which will come into play once I go over the third film next week. But Harry's like just completely being unhinged, and this is definitely I mean, at that time things changed for Harry Osborn in the comics recently, but at that time in the comics, Harry was like on again, off again Green Goblin, and he's like was at that time definitely in the comics obsessed with the approval of his father. Even though he had like a love-hate relationship, it was that little boy in him that still sought that love and respect from his father that he desperately never got. He desperately wanted, but never officially got from, like, at least honestly and earnestly from his father. His father was very manipulative, and even though there's been times when he's written where he actually does care. I mean, he actually does care of his son, but very manipulative in a way of caring, or like very controlling rather than all-out selfless love that you want from a parent. So that kind of pushes that kind of puts friction between him and Peter eventually, because he blames Spider-Man, but he also hates Peter, the fact that he feels like he's protecting Spider-Man, even though as he thinks as his friend, he should let me know who Spider-Man is, because I think and you're protecting him. I'm your best friend, and you're and he killed my father. You should have my back, and I don't feel like you're having my back, and like in a way he feels like, I don't know, I'm not a psychologist, but I'm just gleaming from this. He kind of feels like he's being abandoned by his closest friend in the world. And it's like you're protecting a complete stranger over your best friend that you knew for years. And like, this man took my father. And it's like, it's obviously more to it. And it's like, that then Harry realized, or at least don't even care to realize at this point, that, you seeking love and respect from a man that would have, even if he was alive, would have given to you fully, or at least he would have pretended to give it to you, but he would never even he never treated you like a son. He treated you like one of his things. And the fact that even played out in the previous film, where in the Thanksgiving scene, where he just completely put down MJ for all to hear, and instead of sticking up for MJ, he just like allows him berate her, and like he chastises her for uh, for like trying to stand up for herself. The fact that calling him like a disgusting man for like saying those horrific things, and the fact that he didn't bother to stick up for her shows like what his true colors is. Because it's just like he's a complete daddy's boy. At least until like the past several years that changed a bit, but like at least 5 to 7 years maybe like that's kind of changed a bit in the comics. But at that time Harry was complete daddy's boy. He was completely obsessed with trying to get like the approval from his father that he was never going to get. Then you got Aunt May, still at the beginning of the film hates Spider-Man. At the time in the comics, Aunt May doesn't like Spider-Man until recent comics where she's like one more either little on the side of Spider-Man now or knows that her nephew is Spider-Man. And it depends on her writing. I think now in the comics currently like she doesn't know Peter is Spider-Man, even though by this point I think they should make some significant changes to that. Like in the comics currently with Superman, last year in the comics, or at least early this year, where he finally came out as Clark Kent and Superman to, first to his closest friends and allies, like, people at the Daily Bugle, and then eventually, well, I'm pretty sure like most of the Justice League members knew who he really was anyway, so he didn't really have to come out to them. But it was like televised. Eventually, he wanted to go to his personal friends first, so that way, eventually, when he goes to the world, they won't be shocked. So that's like a thing where I think I like that, the fact that because he stands for truth and justice, and he feels like there's the one lie because Superman doesn't like lying, and that's the one lie that he still always kept. And he kind of like threw that away. I don't want that to like go about with Spider-Man per se, but at the very least, his closest, relatives to the, not only MJ already knows, but Aunt May should definitely know it by this point in current comics. It's been far too long, whereas like it should be like part of the continuity now that she knows he's Spider-Man, just like with the PS4 Spider-Man game where she always knew. Just like with like I mentioned about Robbie Robinson, it's like they knew but it's played along. But it's just like it should be canon that she knows, she's cool with it. She's not going just because she looks elderly. I think she in the comics they kind of like trying to like invert her age slightly so she doesn't look like she's about to keel over by a drop of a hat kind of situation. But she should be able to handle the fact that, like, without having a heart attack over it, that her nephew Spider-Man, he's a grown man. She doesn't need to coddle him. He can handle his business and, like, just be a thing now. But I like the dichotomy between her and Peter, that, she's going through her own thing with, like, losing her house, that her and her husband been living here for years. I think a lot of people of elderly age can attest to the fact that they can't pay certain bills and they have to like move to like a home or a smaller place or with relatives, even though they don't want to because they live in a house for so many years, raised a family and all that other stuff. So it's hard. But then she comes to grips with it, and then has to come to grips with the fact that like her nephew come clean about the whole ordeal with him inadvertently causing the death of her husband, even though it wasn't his fault. Then MJ, as I repeated before, MJ is like, has like a weird, like, even though like I had certain points in the first film that I pointed out, there's like some good moments with MJ that that like I thought stood out. This one, not so much, and I think became progressively less so in the third film. She giving like Peter a hard time. I mean, understandably, but unnecessarily though. It's like she should have just laid it out earlier in the film. It's like I don't know what you're hiding. it's not my business, but you push me away, but clearly you obviously like me. You're not making your mind. So why don't you make up your mind what you want to do, come back to me, and then we'll finally put it to rest. If you want to be with me, we can, work something out. If you don't, then don't come at me with this anymore. That kind of thing. And that's it. That's what it should have been from the jump. And playing tit for tat with that, it's causing whiplash to the audience. And it's like, it's annoying. And it makes her look bad and makes Peter look bad. And that's probably like the worst part of the entire film that everybody can attest to. And rewatching this reminds me how bad it was. It could have been worse, because I've seen a lot of worser kind of, this particular trope. I've seen it played out a whole lot worse than this, ironically, given the fact that we got the CW shows now that does this almost way worse. At the whole, one episode or one season, they go through this and then they make up and then they kind of backtrack the next episode or the next season, and it's annoying. At least it did it in this one film. Can you imagine doing this in like a repeat cycles in like a series? God, it would be horrible. But then you got like Doc Ock and his arc with the losing his wife, and then his sanity at the same time, and then his dream of because he has great goals of wanting to help the world, but it all kinds of falls by the wayside by this horrific accident. And then you see his downward spiral, but then his redemption, the small redemption he makes at the last moment, not wanting to die a monster, and he want to at least do one good thing for the world, and even if it costs him his life. And it's like a nice line that Aunt May says to Peter that he regurgitates to Doc Ock. It's like sometimes we have to make sacrifices for the betterment for others, even if it costs us our dreams. I kind of butchered that, but it's pretty much somewhere similar to that. And it's like, this was his dream, but that's not worth the world. It's not worth endangering the world. But Alfred Molina really acted the hell out of his role. I mean, he does great roles. It's stuff either supporting roles, because I don't think he never did any kind of main role as him as the main lead or anything like that. But he does great supporting roles. Matter of fact, the first thing that technically for me, this is the first thing I ever seen him in. But there's been other stuff that I did see him in, but I never took notice because he was so young looking at the time. But technically, I think the first time that I actually seen him in that I didn't even notice was in the first Indiana Jones film at the beginning, when he was on, when the boulder, before the boulder, or I think, no, it was before the boulder starts, rolling down, chasing after Indiana, and as he's trying to take this idol. And it was that scene where Alfred Molina is in that film, and he's very young at the time. So I'm not sure if that was his official first movie he was in, but he's usually been playing bit parts throughout the years, or at least supporting roles throughout the years. And technically, I think that's the first thing I technically see him in. But the first time he caught my notice was in this movie. So, I mean, that's a little fun little fact. But yeah, am I missing anything? I think it's all the main characters. But yeah, I mean, great film, man. I still love this film. All right, coming up in 2-hour marker. So when I hurry up and get to the Dark Knight movie and start doing a review of that. But please follow me on my various platforms. The links are in the description. The same name, Talkative Carl. YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Patreon. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you think of the Spider-Man 2 film. If you've seen it recently or it's been a while but you still remember it fondly, tell me all the things that you loved about it, all the things that you did not like about it, and like, are you looking forward to Alfred Molina coming back as Doc Ock in Spider-Man 3 in the MCU? Because I'm super excited. I cannot freaking wait. And Winnie the Foe, oh my God, I cannot wait. I cannot wait. I just, oh my God. It's the most hyped movie that like I've been hyped for. A live version of Spider-Verse. Oh my God. It's just going to be, I'm ecstatic. Oh my God. I cannot wait. But yeah, look forward to my Sam Raimi Spider-Man 3 trilogy. Well, at least it ends the trilogy of Sam Raimi. But Spider-Man 3 next week. I'm still going to have a fun time watching it, but it's still going to be some stuff that I'm going to point out, as I know it's been rehashed many times by many other reviewers, but I just want to give my 2 cents on the subject, because I still have fond memories of that, but there's, glaring problems, but we'll try to get through it. And the Topher Grace Venom and the emo Peter dance, and it's like, emo Peter, trust me, we make fun of it, or trust and believe once that Spider-Man 3 comes out December, we all gonna be dancing like that on the way to the theater. I know our show will be like, and I will see you guys next time.